What up? Welcome back to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones, and tonight we're gonna take a look at a horror movie series that at one point in my life really like intrigued me, and uh, I tried to watch all the documentaries about it, and I remember it from when I was a kid, and uh, really spooky. Um, until I started learning more about the real life story, uh, then you get into like facts and who's telling the truth and who's playing a hoax on people, and that is the Amityville Horror. Now, of course, this is really a movie about two stories. Uh, the first one being the DeFeo family, who had moved into a new home in Long Island, Amityville, Long Island, New York, a Dutch colonial house that they had moved from Brooklyn to there, uh, and their family had really aspirations of moving up in society. They did put that father did put a sign in the front that said "High Hopes," and there's various books written on this part of the story. The family consisted of the father, Ron DeFeo Sr., the mother, uh, the firstborn son, which was Ronald Jr., also known as Butch to the family. You had the older sister Dawn and Allison, and then Mark and John, the two younger brothers. But on November 13th, 1973, Ronnie DeFeo decided one night in a drugged and drunken stupor to take a long rifle and shoot all of his family as they slept in their bed. Now, this is where you get into different details and different stories. I mean, there's tons of documentaries and behind the scenes stuff that you have to investigate. But quite literally, the family did have some organized crime ties. Ronald DeFeo went from saying that he didn't kill his family to that spirits in the house told him to kill his family to that it was a mob hit that killed his family. So, I mean, every time they asked him who did it or what happened, it was a different story. So you cannot really believe any of them anymore because he just lied every time they asked him. So, this movie is actually based on the Lutz family, who around a year later moved in to the DeFeo house. Even though they knew that there had been murders there, they were like a recently married couple. The kids were all from the former marriage. And the father, Mr. Lutz, decided to move the family in there because they got it for a cheap price. And I think 23 days later they moved out. Now they told the story of sounds in the house, poltergeist activity, slime on the walls, uh, flies in a room when there shouldn't really be flies. Their younger daughter spoke to a imaginary friend that she said was actually like a pig that could change sizes and shapes. Uh, so it's really spooky. But of course, what do you expect if you move into a house that a whole family was killed in, that you would not sense anything or feel anything? But they did. And when I was younger, I saw this, the Amityville Horror, And my uncle, who liked to scare me, would tell me that it was a true story, that there was ghosts, that everything that happened in this was true. Now, this movie was pretty creepy. Of course, you have James Brolin, Margot Kidder, Rod Steiger as the priest, and there's just facts that are true and not true, and you have to dig into the story and you could figure out if it was true or not. Now, they did interview the priest that actually went into the Lutz house and blessed the house, and he says it was cold in there and a voice told him to get out, which became the tagline for the movie. But he did not say that he was attacked by flies like in the movie it showed. He did say he was slapped or that he was hit while he was in there. And then it is true that he tried to contact the family later and you could just get like static and snow uh, on the phone. So there's just things that are true and things that aren't true. The things that were made by Hollywood and things that they actually said that yes, it did happen. Now, this movie, it was pretty spooky when I was a kid, but not too bad. I mean, I did watch it and I was like, got through it all right. The music is pretty creepy, the little kids chanting and stuff. And it pretty much follows the family up until the day that um, they exited the house, leaving all their possessions behind and not worrying about anything. They just moved, and they actually moved straight across the country to California as soon as they were out of the house, which is kind of weird because why would they leave everything and just move? You know, I mean, something had to happen. George Lutz goes on to say that something did happen to them that last night. It was like it was just unbearable. But he will never actually say, or he never did actually say exactly what happened and what they saw. But there's a feeling like that, you know, all hell broke loose and stuff was flying around and they were seeing like apparitions and stuff. But like I said, if you dig into the story, it's pretty crazy. There's a lot of details and stuff. Then you get into like the aftermath, like where they actually brought in the Warrens from Annabelle and all that stuff, The Conjuring, and they stayed the night in the house and with some other investigators, and they actually did pick up a picture of like a ghost boy or something like that. I mean, you know, it's weird that they picked it up, but nobody really saw anything. There was a news crew there. They didn't get any footage, so I mean, it is what it is. And ever since then, people have moved into the house, and they haven't had anything happen except for regular public people going and bugging them at their house and stuff. So they changed the number of the house. It was 212 Ocean Lane, and now they changed it to 208 or something like that. But I mean, a pretty creepy story. James Brolin plays a pretty crazy transformation from when they move in. He just becomes more and more disturbed. He's like worried about firewood and like all kinds of stuff. Of course, the red room that's in the movie that they say was like underneath the stairs to the basement, and later on you find out that it was just a toy room and they just painted it red because that's the paint that they had. So it wasn't like a hidden room or anything like that where they did seances, but you never know. I'll talk more about that later. But then you go into Amityville 2, The Possession. Now this movie, it does star Burt Young, who from Rocky, who plays a pretty big douche in this movie. He's a jerk. And the girl from Better Off Dead and Last American Virgin, she's also in this. But I ended up seeing this when I was young, like on HBO, like at like 1 in the morning or something like that. And man, I think I finished it, but just barely, and I could not sleep after I watched this. I mean, it's just creepy, and this is more based on the DeFeo family, like before the Lutz moved in. It's loosely based. I mean, they changed the names and a lot of things that happened, but there is some secret, um, like specific details that are actually part of the what really happened, but you have to like investigate it. Like that they had a big cross in the dining room, and in the movie they show like a POV shot of something come out of the basement and it goes through the house and then it sees the cross and it like throws a sheet over it or something like that. And I just remember being a kid and getting like really spooked out about it. There is like a crazy incestual relationship that they don't really show the whole thing because there is like some cutout scenes where they do show that the brother and sister are like getting it on, but in this one it's just implied. But the kid turns into like a crazy demon, like all it's crazy. And when I finished watching this when I was a kid, I could not sleep, so that added to my nightmares. Of course, there's Amityville 3D, which has a young Meg Ryan and I forget who else in here. Tess Harper, like some other actors and stuff. But this one's just pretty much all invented, and it's not even really scary. I mean, I guess you could get scared from it, but I didn't, and it was in 3D, so it was really to like uh, cash off the 3D craze at that time, like Jaws 3 and Friday the 13th Part 3, and but I never really watched this one as much as the first one. Uh, the second one, I don't really like to revisit it, but I will watch it every once in a while, but it still spooks me out. The cool part was this was actually from a set from MGM, but I don't have the actual box. But this was like the fourth disc that came in it, and it's the Amityville Confidential, and it has some pretty cool documentaries from the History Channel on here. My favorite one is the haunting of Amityville, and it's just like a really cool story. And if you watch it, you pick up a lot of details about the story, like when the Lutz were in the house. Um, you pick up that when they left, they show the family leaving, and then they show like a spirit. I don't know if it's like a old witch or like a Indian or something, and it's like telling them like to get out, and the dad sees it and he like runs out. So I mean, I don't know if that's what finally spooked him or what, but it also talks about the DeFeos, like that the son Ronnie was sitting in the basement where there's a TV and he was just like all drugged out, and that he was hearing voices like of conspiracies against him, and all of a sudden like a black shape came out with black hands and it gave him the rifle, and that's when he just went and started killing. And he said I couldn't stop even if I wanted to stop. Once I started killing, and it's like somebody was controlling me. But like I said, that's what he said, but he's a big liar. So but this is a pretty cool disc to check out. This didn't come out when they released it from Scream Factory, the stuff that's on here, which is pretty nice to have on there. Then I finally picked it up once on Blu-ray. I watched this one a couple times. Um, the remake, Amityville, the horror. Now, this was, of course, our introduction to Chloe Grace Moretz, and the only thing about this movie, I don't really like this one. It's really like, I don't know. It's more brutal, and like it just has a lot of jump scares. And Ryan Reynolds to me just did not fit the part of George Lutz. I mean, I wish that we could go back in time and they would have actually picked James Brolin's son, Josh Brolin, to play the part. It probably would have been a lot better. But I mean, that's wishful thinking. But this was just your typical Hollywood remake, jump scares and like things that didn't even make sense. Like now, instead of a pig, the imaginary friend was a little girl, Jody, who was the daughter of the DeFeos, which is not true at all. So I mean, I hardly ever revisit that. I don't think I've ever even watched that. I just watched it once. Another cool thing I have is my Amityville Horror, which is actually the story of the Lutz's son, Daniel Lutz. And this is like his story, and he talks about a lot of things that happen in the movie and stuff. Uh, it's pretty interesting. I have watched this one. Uh, he talks about how George Lutz was like into the like spirit, like occultism, and like do like messing with Ouija boards and stuff like that. Which if they did, I feel like that's the only reason they open themselves up to like any spirits or like things that they could imagine happen to them and stuff. Because once you open that door, it's like, you know, there's no turning back. Um, but if you watch this, you get like some crazy little details about the whole story, which is kind of weird. Like I said, you gotta watch everything and then get the little bits and pieces and like kind of figure out what's true and what's not. Like some people don't even know what they're talking about because they say that, oh, he killed him with a shotgun when it wasn't a shotgun. I think it was like a Marlin rifle or something like that. No neighbors heard the shots. Uh, you're living inside a house and they shoot somebody right next to you in the next room and you don't wake up. So it's pretty weird. I mean, something had to was going on, and so I mean, I lean a little bit more to that. Ron DeFeo was messed up and he killed his family, but then when the Lutz moved in, they opened themselves up to like stuff happening to them, and of course they got blown out of proportion, and people tried to like say that they were doing a hoax and stuff like that. And once that ball got running, then they just were looked at as hoaxers, and any bit of like truth that was to her story just went away after that. Um, but it's a pretty interesting case. And of course, in the end, I finally got the Scream Factory Amityville trilogy. Um, this one's pretty cool. The first one doesn't have that much of special features, but I mean very little. But the second one does. It, you know, it has a lot of interviews and stuff like that. Um, the third one as well. You know, it has more stuff than the first one. But uh, I have watched this. I haven't watched them all, but I really like to get some more like inside stuff, inside details and stuff about the story. So maybe I could like, you know more about what happened and stuff like that. But it's up to you to believe either something happened or nothing happened. But one thing for sure, people died in that house. Uh, a family moved in and just t- turned ass on 23 days later. Uh, so something had to happen. But anyways, guys, that's my look at the Amityville series. Of course, we know that afterwards, even up to this day, they just keep releasing like Amityville stuff, like The Haunting and The Next Generation and Amityville, the Next Horror. Like there's just tons of them. I have a couple of them, but I don't have a lot of them. But those are just Hollywood movies that I'm more interested like in the real true crime story that happened and stuff like that. But check these movies out. Pretty interesting, pretty spooky. Watch the documentaries about the stories behind this. It's pretty cool. Um, Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.